Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to this edition of the Anchor Group podcast. Now, this is Michael for Anchor Group, and I'm going to be flying solo on this podcast. This is going to be a recap episode over the big summit that happened in Austin, Texas this past week with BigCommerce, Feedonomics, and Makeswift. Some of the events that went on, some of the big takeaways. So in case you weren't there, in case you didn't get a chance to make it, or in case you use BigCommerce, Feedonomics, or Makeswift, and you're kind of wondering what the word on the street is with those products, this is going to be a podcast for you. We're going to dive into that in this episode. So let's get into it. As I mentioned, this podcast, we're going to talk about BigSummit, which covered a couple of different software platforms, some of which you might be familiar with. And there are really a couple of key takeaways from this conference that we'll get into. But first off, this conference was in Austin, Texas. Now, if you know anything about Anchor Group, you know we are not from Texas. We are an upper Midwest-based software and e-commerce development agency. So that means we go ice fishing for fun, right? Austin, Texas, in the month of August, the temperature was 100 degrees and very humid, right? So being a Minnesotan, we're not used to that. So it was wild going down there during some of the hottest days, maybe of the year, or at least of the month. I don't know. It was pretty hot. Nonetheless, it's always good to connect with people in the industry, to connect with people who you meet with on Zoom calls throughout the day, who you work, in conjunction with projects on. That's a ton of fun, meeting people in person. I like to kind of talk about it as you finally get to see a LinkedIn headshot walking around in real life, right? And that's exciting. That's fun to be able to meet those people that you've, chatted with on different platforms, have been on Zoom meetings with. It's always good to connect in person. And this conference was no different. But you guys, here's the thing. There were actually a couple of key takeaways that I want to share with you in case you weren't able to attend, or if you were there, you just want to hear my take on it. Right. So first off, the big thing that happened was the official rebranding of BigCommerce to Commerce. We saw in the news a while ago, BigCommerce acquired commerce.com, which is now their URL. So maybe some people were reading between the lines there, kind of knew what was coming down the pipeline, but it's now official. BigCommerce is no longer a parent company per se. It's now a subsidiary of commerce.com. So commerce.com is now the parent company for BigCommerce, for Feedonomics, and for Makeswift. And really those three software products roll up under commerce.com. Now, if you've been around the block once or twice, rebranding is kind of the Wild West, or can kind of be the Wild West, right? Whenever you rebrand a product, you think change management is hard internally at a company. Now imagine rebranding a product that's essentially change management on a much more public-facing form. That's exactly what commerce.com is going through right now. At Anchor Group, we believe, and I believe, that this restructuring is actually going to help people be less confused about what the products are. For example, you can have BigCommerce, you can use their product Feedonomics, and you can use their product Makeswift. You can use them all together, or you can use them one-off if they apply for your situation. Before, BigCommerce was a parent company, Feedonomics, Makeswift, all that stuff had been acquired over time. So it was kind of confusing about what belonged to which and how you could use what. And so by making commerce.com the parent, essentially, right, the umbrella all those three fall under, that should clear some confusion. Now I know not everybody agrees with that, and that's all good, entitled to your own opinion. But from the conversations we have with clients and with our prospects as we work with them, we've only heard less confusion, or had less confusion as we've walked them through that. So quick on BigCommerce, right? So BigCommerce is still their flagship e-commerce platform. It is still the digital front door that they have available for merchants that works in a B2C capacity, a D2C capacity, or in a B2B capacity. And really that B2B niche, right, that B2B e-commerce platform is really where we see BigCommerce shine. And that's how us at Anchor Group, we work a lot in the B2B manufacturing wholesale distribution space. And we see BigCommerce work very well and play very strongly to that channel or to that industry. So BigCommerce, of course, at this convention conference, whatever you want to call it, they spoke a lot about BigCommerce, a lot of features and that sort of thing. One notable thing is that BigCommerce B2B edition is not going away. They aren't backing down, and they're continuing to put their time, energy, and talent into making it better. So at the conference, they released, maybe not released, but they announced a couple of new feature updates, many of which we think are going to be valuable, very valuable for the clients that we work with. I was chatting with other agencies there and they thought the same thing, right? We just, on the agency side, right, we like seeing a product that continues to be improved upon, not one that's getting dusty on the shelf. So that was encouraging to see. On the Feedonomics side, so if you're not familiar with Feedonomics, commerce.com owns Feedonomics. Commerce owns Feedonomics, and it's an omni-channel or multi-channel selling platform. So essentially, you link it to your e-commerce website, and from there, Feedonomics will take that product data and it will migrate it or have it flow into other selling platforms. For example, Amazon, Meta. So if you're running Facebook, Instagram, stuff like that, Walmart, eBay, it'll take your product data that you're only managing in your BigCommerce backend, right? And it'll pump it to those channels. The orders will get placed on those channels and come back to your e-commerce engine and that sort of thing. And Feedonomics for a while has been a real good enterprise solution if that's what you're looking for. However, it has been a little bit lacking in the small to medium-sized business arena, just from a function, feature, and licensing perspective. And so at the conference, the Feedonomics team announced, like, they're going to start addressing kind of the need in that small to medium-sized business arena, making the product more accessible and more friendly, if you will, right, to those types of businesses, which is going to be really nice. So stay tuned as those functions, those features, those releases continue to come out. We'll be able to see how the rubber's going to meet the road there for how that's really going to work itself out. So that's on the Feedonomics side. Now the Makeswift side, that's the kind of the third pillar, the third company underneath the commerce umbrella. That's a page builder tool. It has been a page builder tool used in the headless environment, but probably the most exciting thing they announced during this commerce conference, BigSummit, was that they are going to be making Makeswift accessible for BigCommerce Stencil. Right? So many of you are probably familiar with Shogun as a page builder tool. It's very popular in the Shopify ecosystem. It's also compatible in BigCommerce. Makeswift is going to be, you're going to be able to leverage that in a very similar way as Shogun. Now, for some of you very technical folks out there, I might be dumbing this down and watering this down a little bit too much, right? But nonetheless, at a high level, that's more or less what's going to happen with that Makeswift tool. So it's going to be a BigCommerce product that can be used to extend the widgets on the page builder tool, or to get a whole new set, essentially, of widgets, a whole new software piece of your software stack to use if you're using BigCommerce Stencil. And that's going to allow you to make some really dynamic pages that have a more robust feel, right, than the current page builder in Stencil. So those were some exciting things from kind of the rebrand of commerce.com. Now, of course, like any tech conference, right, at times they were bumping music that had the loud bass. They dropped balloons from the sky, not from the sky, right, from the ceiling, to announce the rebrand. So, all those things are fun. Take it for what it is. It's a rebrand of a business. And so there's always, some hiccups and challenges along the way, but overall, we feel like this is trending in the right direction, like truly. Now, the one last thing I wanted to touch on was the idea of AI. You guys, AI is huge these days. I mean, if you're listening to this, I'm assuming you're somewhere in the e-commerce ecosystem, whether you manage your own site, whether you're an agency, a software company. Like, AI is here. It's not going away. I was in the airport the other day, actually flying back from Austin, Texas, back to Minneapolis, and I was at my gate waiting, and there was an older gentleman that went to the gate attendant and said, "Hey, is there an ATM around here? I'm looking for an ATM. I need to take out some cash." The gate attendant was like, "Oh, like this is, we're at the gate section. Like, this is where people board. There's no ATM here." I overheard this gentleman say, "Oh, Chat GPT told me that there was going to be an ATM somewhere in this area, so I'm just looking for it." And that really hit me. I'm like, okay, right? At times we get these fads that come and go, but AI for a while now has been rising and rising and rising, and we see people pouring millions and billions of dollars into AI and what that means to the tech industry and the tech world and world as a whole. But seeing this example of this person at this gate using Chat GPT to find an ATM really solidified in my mind, like, come on, people, that's crazy that somebody's using AI to try to find an ATM in an airport and believes that AI is smart enough to be able to actually tell it where it is, even if it's in a area that doesn't seem like it would be, which it wasn't. Nonetheless, the point being, AI is here to stay. At least it looks that way. So as a business, how are you going to adopt? You're probably thinking the same thing for your business. Merchants are thinking the same thing for their business. Well, guess what? Commerce.com is thinking the same thing for their business. Now, during every presentation, every talk, every breakout session they had during this conference, it seemed like, of course, the topic of AI was coming up at some point, right? At this point, we expect that. But there are some quote unquote experts on AI. And what I would say is even those experts at this point don't truly know what the next month, the next 3 months, dare I say, the next 6 months are going to hold with AI. So just because it's so evolving right now. And the BigCommerce team, or the commerce team they weren't pulling their punches when they talked about AI. They were very confident in how they talked about it. And specifically, I went to one of the breakout sessions where they talked about specifically BigCommerce and their B2B edition and AI. And they outlined a roadmap for what they predict AI is going to look like, the order flow, for a merchant, right? From their buyers purchasing, even B2B buyers purchasing, what that whole system's going to look like. And let's be honest, the roadmap they laid out, it could come true. Is it probably going to come true? I don't know. Probably not exactly the way they laid it out. But the thing that really stuck out to me was, you guys, they were incredibly excited to be talking about AI and the way that it's going to interact with their product. Now, I've been to some of these conferences where people are they talk about it because they know it's like the elephant in the room, you need to address it, but they're very hesitant in it. And that's kind of become the narrative or the way that I've learned to just kind of accept the way people talk about it. But the commerce team as a whole carried a different tone with that. And as an agency, and if I was a merchant, I would see that as a positive. Now, at this point, they don't know everything that's going to happen. Nobody does. But if you're building a business or trying to operate a business that's going to be future-proof 3 years from now, 5 years from now, and you know AI is going to be part of it, I'd want to back a company that actually seems excited to work on it and is not pumping the brakes, being overly cautious with how they talk about it or that sort of thing, but rather being prudent, being thoughtful, and then being bold and confident in what they say about it. And that's really the vibe that I got as they laid out their roadmap for AI in the B2B ecosystem using their product BigCommerce. And then there's some Feedonomics stuff that flows into that as well. But that's one of the big takeaways I had. That's hard to put into a LinkedIn post or a blog post or whatever. But hopefully you kind of get the gist of that on this podcast here, is that the vibe in the room, right, was, and I realize that's kind of a weird term, a weird way to put it, but there's just a little bit something different in a positive way, the way that they were speaking about the commerce team versus many other people that I have seen talk about it. So that gave me in a positive way, is AI interacting with the commerce products, once again, being BigCommerce, Feedonomics, and Makeswift. So you guys, that's where I'm going to end it today. Kind of short, hopefully kind of sweet. 15 minutes. We'll wrap this up, about 15 minutes, right? But thank you for tuning in. If you were at the conference and if you had a chance to connect, it was great connecting with all of you. If we didn't have a chance to connect and you want to, feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. Always happy to set up a call to connect, to just share thoughts and ideas. That's always a great way, right, to strengthen connections in the ecosystem and ultimately make all of our projects better, and to help all of our clients even better with their websites. So hopefully you found this helpful. If you have any hot takes on BigSummit this year that you want to share, by all means, feel free to reach out. Feel free to drop it in the comments if you're watching this on YouTube or if you're watching this on a podcasting platform. We'd love to hear them. The more we can connect in the ecosystem, the stronger we're all going to be, and the better we're going to be able to serve our clients from the agency and tech partner perspective. And if you are a merchant currently using BigCommerce, whether it's for B2C, B2C, or B2B sales, or a combination of all of those, right? And you got questions, you want to talk through some ideas, maybe about specifically how AI can impact your business, by all means, you guys, reach out. Happy to connect, happy to talk. And as always, you guys, feel free to tune in next time to the Anchor Group podcast, where we talk about things NetSuite, e-commerce related, and different tech topics. We've got some exciting guests coming up that I think many of you are going to enjoy. So until next time, you guys, keep on chasing greatness, everybody. We'll see you in the next podcast episode.